It's amazing to me how many speakers, whether they be trainers or salespersons or leaders or teachers, they want to use stories and analogies that they have no part in. When I say that, I mean, and I've seen some world-class speakers. I mean, people literally who travel around the world as communicators, who use a story to break the ice. They'll step on the stage and they'll say, I would like to talk to you about this today, but first, a funny story. And the story that they tell may be irrelevant. In fact, I've heard people actually say before they start a story, hey, I just want to share this story or this joke with you. It really doesn't have anything to do with what I'm going to talk about today, but I think it's funny. I think you'll enjoy it. I did. And then they go into their story or their anecdote or whatever you want to call it. It's fascinating to me how people who are communicators expect that random story to convey whatever it is they intend to convey. Bob Berg says it like this: people do business with people they know, like, and trust. When all things are equal, if you have a chance to buy the same product from two people and the price is the same, the product is the same, the quality is the same, the difference maker will be most people will do business with people they know, like, and trust. Our job then as a service provider, our job then as a purveyor of information, our job then as a product seller is to find some way to build know, like, and trust. And I'm hard pressed to understand how telling an irrelevant story builds know, like, or trust, especially when you tell that story as a first-hand experience or a first-person story. I was there when this happened, or I saw this happen, or you try to bring some relevance to the story with your geographical location, your knowledge of the area, something of that nature, which does tend to personalize it until you get to the punchline and the majority of your crowd realizes, I've already heard that story. Only when I heard it the first time, it didn't happen there, it happened here. That's kind of challenging. It's really challenging to build trust when you're telling a story as if it's first person and everybody knows there's no way you were there. So how do you build know, like, and trust? How long, as an example, does it take to build trust? If you were a coaching client, I would tell you that. It's easier than you think. And it can be done more quickly than you think if you follow the right steps. I love the way Rebecca Carroll talks about it. She says, you know, we say all the time that we want to believe in Jesus, that we want to trust Jesus, we want to know Jesus. She said, but you've got to understand, you cannot trust someone you do not love, or you won't believe in someone, you won't love someone you don't believe in, you won't believe in someone you don't know, you can't know God apart from his word. That's a really clumsy paraphrase. Rebecca, if you're watching, not likely, but if you're watching, correct me on that. Feel free to send me a video comment, we'll stick it right on there. Or you can go to her YouTube page and see it, she says it all the time. But I love the progression that says it's hard to have a relationship with a God that you know nothing about. You can't trust someone like that because you don't know anything about him. You can't believe someone like that because you don't know anything about him. You can't hang on to every word of someone that you know nothing about. But when we talk about reading scripture or reading someone else's seminal work, what is it that we're hoping to achieve in that? Is it just to transfer some knowledge, some information from their head to ours, from their life experiences to ours? Or is it to really get to know the person, the persona, the personality of the writer? And how many of you read a book by Max Lucado and you hear his voice in your head, because he has a very unique kind of a voice. Or if you read something by Ravi Zacharias, you would hear his voice in your head. I've heard people, I've actually had people tell me, when I read your book, I hear your voice in my head because I've watched your videos for so long. I guess that's flattering, but I know it happens to me. If I've ever heard that person speak, or if I've heard them speak enough, their personality, their persona, the way that they deliver information, even the pace, the cadence with which they deliver it. You know, I've been attending Gateway Church for, this year will be 7 years, New Year's Eve. And I've heard Pastor Robert Morris teach many, many a Sunday. And when I read his books, I hear his voice. I can see him on the stage. I can see his mannerisms. I can see him wiping the corners of his mouth, and he'll even tell you the stories of why he does that. All of those little personas, personality traits, the uniqueness of the who that he is, are delivered both in his writing and in his face-to-face encounters. So let me put all this together in a quick little package for you. When you're communicating with someone, whether it's in email, or it's in a book, or it's face-to-face, or it's from the platform, or it's via Skype, any one of those ways that you communicate with someone, your eye contact or lack thereof, your body gestures, your positioning, your stance, your choice of words, and yes, the choice of the stories that you tell, all build a picture of who you are. And it asks the question, do you know me? Do you like me? And do you trust me? And there are elements that should be built into your presentation, your sales pitch, your writing, your training, your coaching, your product even, that represent the persona of who you really are, not the facade of who you want to be, but the persona of who you really are. Now, if, in all honesty, you are not yet the person that you want to be, I'm going to encourage you, in genuine authenticity, to not placate to the lowest level or the lowest common denominator, nor to fake it until you make it so that your facade becomes your only persona, but to be honest about the struggles, to say, here's where I am today and here's where I'm headed. Yes, it's valuable to say this is where I was and this is where I want to be, but to say this is where I am and this is how I plan to get there gives other people hope that where they are today is not the end. Can I challenge you to be authentic? Don't oversell yourself or your product or your services. Don't promise the moon and deliver the mud. If you have something to communicate, use your own stories. Be honest about who you are. There's a difference between an analogy or a metaphor and a personal story or a joke or a story that you want to relate. Because those personal stories that are not your stories, those things that you want to relate that have nothing to do with you, those jokes and anecdotes that are completely extraneous to your point, they're not going to take you anywhere. They're not going to build know, like, and trust. They're going to continue to build the facade around that looks like you've got it all together. That looks like you're a funny, hilarious communicator who just happens to live these wonderful experiences. Trust me, there's enough funny in your life already if you change the way you look at it. If you're not sure how to do that, get a hold of Michael Jr.'s stuff. I think his latest is called Funny on Purpose or something like that. Go to YouTube, type in Michael Jr., just Michael, Jr. He can teach you some funny. He'll teach you how to see funny in your own life, and you won't have to make up somebody else's stories and put your name in the blank. And in that way, you will be genuinely authentic, not a facade, not placating the lowest common denominator. And in telling your own stories with authenticity, you will build know, like, and trust. I'm J Loren Norris, and you've been watching Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.